Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by and joining me for a little digging deep tonight. Let me ask you, did you travel for the holidays? Did you maybe host people for the holidays? I remember when I was a kid, we would always go to my dad's side of the family on Christmas Eve night, and then we would go to my mom's side of the family on Christmas afternoon. And on my dad's side of the family, I was usually the only kid there, but at my mom's side of the family, there were a bunch of cousins, and so that was always a lot of fun. But then it would be back home again, Christmas, another Christmas come and gone. So, did you go to somebody else's house for Christmas when you were a kid? Things change, right? And sometimes when the person who hosted the family get-togethers is no longer with us, then sometimes families kind of drift apart. But then we also start to make our own family traditions. And no matter how much we would like to keep things the same, nothing stays the same. Things change. That's just the way the world works. And sometimes we welcome change. We see it as an opportunity to do new things or to learn new things. And as Christmas comes and goes, every year, each Christmas is different. You know, the kids are a little older. We're a little bit older. And things change. So I'm going to read about the time that Jesus got left behind. And I think this is an interesting story. This is in Luke 2. And I'm going to start reading in verse 41. Now, every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. Now, all the men were required to go. All Jewish men were required to go. But sometimes women and children would go as well. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. And after the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So they were traveling with a group. It wasn't just the three of them. They were traveling with a group. And that was customary. It was safer to travel in large groups. And when the group heads for home, then his parents assume that Jesus is with them somewhere in this group. He knows how the trip works. You stay with the group. But they realized after a day of traveling that he's not with the group. This kind of reminds me of the movie Home Alone. Now, if you've ever lost a child, even for a moment, like in the store or at a park or something, you know the terror, the intense shot of adrenaline that charges through you. And when you find the child, you can't decide whether to yell at the kid or to hug them. So maybe you do both. I feel for Mary and Joseph. It couldn't have been easy raising the Son of God. Now, Mary and Joseph weren't neglectful parents. When a group like that traveled together, the children would walk with the women and the older boys would walk with the men. So Jesus is 12. So he's kind of in between being a kid and being an older boy. So probably Mary and Joseph each thought that he was with the other one. Have you ever done that? When they found him, Mary, probably both relieved and angry, asked him why he did this to them. And 12-year-old Jesus says, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know I must be in my Father's house?" "No, Jesus, I'm sorry, I didn't think of that. I thought you'd be with us." He didn't seem to have missed his parents at all. He seemed surprised that his mom was upset with him. So Jesus was also at the age where he would have been training for his bar mitzvah. And that would include being around rabbis. All Jewish boys of that age would be spending time studying, being around rabbis, discussing the Torah, kind of like a confirmation class that we do in church. So it really wasn't strange that he was talking with rabbis. But still, it seems like he was ditching his parents, you know? Maybe he just lost track of time. I don't know. This is an interesting little story in Luke. The other Gospels don't mention it. In fact, there's nothing else about the childhood of Jesus. This is the only glimpse we see. Now, you may have heard stories about Jesus' childhood where maybe he took clay birds and made them come alive and fly. Or you may have heard that the boy Jesus, hurt other kids or cursed kids or all these crazy stories. None of those are true. Those are made up stories from the infancy gospel of Thomas. And it didn't make it in the Bible for a really good reason, because it just wasn't true. And it was just the product of someone's imagination. Because sometimes people aren't satisfied with gaps in a story, they have to fill them in. But this is all we know about Jesus' childhood. And I think that's because Jesus was probably a normal Jewish boy. Even his name was ordinary. There were lots of boys named Jesus at that time. He had working class parents. He was circumcised on the 8th day, just like every other Jewish boy. He was taught the Torah, just like every other Jewish boy. Maybe there was nothing to tell about his growing up years because he was just a regular kid. So I have to wonder why Luke included this story. Now, this isn't the first story that Luke's told that has Mary pondering or treasuring things in her heart. The angel Gabriel told Mary that she'd found favor with God. She was going to get supernaturally pregnant and give birth to the Messiah. How long do you suppose it took for her to process that announcement? Jesus was born in the same way as every other infant. He looked like every other baby boy. But when the shepherds showed up and told Mary about the angel and what the angel had told them, it says that Mary treasured that in her heart. And I think because it was confirmation of what the angel Gabriel had told her, she could have been at that point like, maybe that was just a dream or something, or I don't know. But when the shepherds come and they tell her that, here she is with what looks like your average baby boy, but no, it is true. He's more than that. And so that was probably some confirmation for her and helped her process what was happening to her. When they took Jesus to the temple for the rituals that parents would do with their babies, there was a man named Simeon there and also a woman named Anna. And both of them blessed Jesus and prophesied over him and recognized him as the Messiah. And Simeon, so that's another confirmation for Mary, but also Simeon told Mary that someday a sword would pierce her soul too. And I'm sure she took that to heart and wondered what he meant by that. Mary probably thought that Jesus would be well into manhood before this whole Messiah thing would happen. And for the most part, that's true. He didn't start his ministry until after 30 years old. But here in this story, we see Jesus' passion for the Torah and what the temple represented. And he's already revealing his passion. His zeal for his Father's house was there long before he drove out the money changers. Now, I like to think that Jesus saw how distraught his mother was, or maybe how angry she was, and so went obediently with them back home. Whatever, Mary was still changed by that event. It was one of those times when a parent realizes that their child is growing up and will become independent and begin their grown-up lives. That's what Jesus is showing here in this story. You know, this is what I came for, not to be a little boy forever. Jesus had come with a purpose, a mission to fulfill, and this was a sign of it. So Jesus and his parents went home, but they were all changed by what had happened and what had been said. And Mary treasured all these things in her heart, it says. The shepherds had gone back to their fields, praising God and rejoicing at what they had heard from the angel, and then what they saw when they found the baby in a manger, just like the angel had said. They were not the same anymore. They had been changed by their experiences. The Magi, the wise men, went home by a different route because they were warned in a dream to do that. For them, you know, the star, this, you know, astrological event, this finding the baby, the interaction with Herod, the dream that sent them home a different way. I mean, they would never be the same after that. The incarnation is kind of a fancy word for God taking on a physical form. The incarnation of God through Jesus brought together divinity, the divinity of God, and the humanity of Jesus, so that Jesus was both fully divine and fully human. The incarnation changed everything. When God moved in, hope became a reality. Hope became a real person. Emmanuel, God with us. So as we look into the new year, it's a good time to think about how we've been transformed by the incarnation and anticipate the transformation that is coming. Because God is always moving, always doing something. And just as Mary pondered all these things, treasured all these things in her heart, so should we. The word remember appears in the Bible over 250 times. So let's start this new year with remembering. Remember God's faithfulness to you. It doesn't have to be anything big. Sometimes God shows up in very small ways. Sometimes we look forward to the big things and then we're kind of disappointed they don't live up to our expectations. Often joy is found in small things. A song from the musical Rent asks this question: how do you measure a year in the life of someone? In daylights and sunsets and midnights and cups of coffee, in inches and miles and laughter and strife, in 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? And the answer to the question is, how about measure it in love? This song tells us to count the things that matter: love, compassion, laughter, memories. Think about your memories from this past year. How has God met you when you needed it? What were the small joys in life? You know, sometimes just a hot cup of coffee is a joy to me. And it slows me down so that I can meet with God if I pay attention. Rabbi Abraham Heschel wrote, "Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement because everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed." Let's be amazed. I know it's easier to identify problems in life, in the world, but we need to build the habit of identifying the goodness of God. Let's replace worry with worshiping God. Let's replace fear with faith. Let's be like Mary, treasuring all these things in our heart, pondering them as we go into the new year. God is with us. We've been transformed by the incarnation, and God's not done with us yet either. So I hope that you will take that opportunity in the days to come to think about how God has blessed you, even if this is the worst year you can remember. God was still with you. Can you pinpoint even small things that reminded you that God was still with you? Will you pray with me? Loving God, may we be found and may we find a place called home, a place where faith holds us and grace renews us, where forgiveness longs for us to be who you will us to be. May we find a place called home where we are accepted as we are, where we are taken in and loved unconditionally, a place called home where we belong and our souls fit and our questions are allowed and our anger is heard and our needs are recognized and our pain is held and our names are known. And may this be that place, oh God, this community, this group of travelers and doubters and companions on the way, this home where your place is our place. And place isn't a building, but a way of being together in relationship, held together by love. Loving God, homecoming God, may we make this a home to all who still yet seek a place of grace-filled sanctuary and gracious welcome. So be it. Amen. Well, I appreciate you taking a break with me here for this time. We will be back again at our regular schedule next week. We took some time off for the holidays, and so I'll be back Monday morning, 8:30, Coffee with Kelly, and maybe we'll be snowed in by then. I don't think so, but I do like snow. And then Monday night, we're going to Wonder Why with Josh, and then we'll be back here on Thursday for Digging Deep. So remember that you are so loved by your Creator. God is with you all the time. Just pay attention. Till next time, see ya.